picture this, you wake up on a Tuesday morning.
The absolute most average Tuesday.
Right, exactly. The sunlight is hitting the dining room floor just right. The coffee is brewing. Your laptop is, sitting open on the kitchen island. And your favorite pen is exactly where it always is.
Everything is in its place.
Yeah. You have spent decades building this life of just absolute unshakable reliability. You know exactly who you are, what your company needs from you, and how to deliver it.
You're at the top of your game.
Exactly. But then suddenly, the phone rings. And in a matter of like a 3-minute conversation, nobody needs you anymore.
Which is terrifying.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, what do you do when the very structure that defines your entire life, your whole identity, really just vanishes overnight?
Well, I mean, it is the ultimate collision between who you think you are and the system you exist inside. It's profoundly disorienting.
Oh, I bet.
Because, the stillness that follows that phone call rarely feels like liberation. Initially, it just feels like a terrifying void.
And that void is exactly where we are starting today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission today is uniquely tailored to you, the listener.
We've got a really incredible story to unpack.
We do. We are looking at a memoir called Bloom Again, a memoir of reinvention by Julie Bolejack.
So good.
Yeah. Julie was a Fortune 50 IT executive who lost her 30-year career in an instant. She then went on to build this award-winning artisan chocolate business from scratch, only to have to, pivot all over again.
Right, and rather than just walking through a chronological timeline of her life, we are going to use her story as a mirror.
I love that approach.
Yeah, the goal is to extract the core mechanics of her reinvention so you can evaluate your own career path, examine how you define security, and perhaps confront what you might be postponing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So to understand how to evaluate a career path, we first have to look at how we define our value at work in the first place.
Which brings us back to that Tuesday morning.
All right, let's go back to that. So Julie is 58 years old. She's sitting in a reupholstered high-backed chair that actually used to belong to her parents.
A great little detail.
Yeah, it really grounds the moment. And she has just delivered a massive IT project for her Fortune 50 company. And not just any project. I mean, she delivered it with 0 post-implementation defects.
Which in the IT world is basically a unicorn.
Completely. She is operating at the absolute peak of her capability. Then her manager calls.
But her manager doesn't actually say much, do they?
No. Instead, a total stranger from human resources takes over the line and just says, your position is being eliminated as part of a reduction in force.
Wow. Reduction in force,
Yeah.
RIF. I mean, it is the ultimate sanitized corporate acronym.
It's so cold.
It really is. And what makes this moment so psychologically shattering for her is the silence of her manager on that call.
Yeah, that stood out to me too.
Right. The person she actually has relational proximity to, the person who knows the sweat she put into that 0 defect project, just steps back.
Yeah.
And the institution steps forward and speaks in this sterilized language of optimization.
It's brutal.
It completely breaks what she calls the inherited compact.
Let's explore that compact for a second, because she mentions inheriting this idea from her parents. Both of them worked for General Motors.
A very different era.
Completely.
Right.
They worked during a specific era of American corporate paternalism. There was this unwritten rule. You give the institution your loyalty, your overtime, your weekends, and in return, the institution shields you from the chaos of the market.
Exactly. And Julie was operating under a modern, internalized version of that exact contract. She became the reliable one.
Yes, capital R, capital O.
Right. When a massive project was failing, the company called her to stabilize the room. She just assumed that her extreme capability was her armor.
Which makes sense, but it leads to what you call the trap of competence.
Yes, it's a brilliant illustration of it. When you are highly capable, you naturally absorb the tension of the system you are in.
You just take it all on.
You do. You fix the broken processes, you soothe the stressed clients, you stabilize the chaotic departments. But over time, this really dangerous psychological shift happens. Capability becomes expectation.
And then expectation becomes identity.
Exactly. High-achieving professionals begin to internalize a false equation. They believe their value equals their output. They convince themselves that indispensability is the same thing as safety.
But it's not.
No, because we have to look at the underlying mechanics of a corporation. Institutions are not moral entities, and they do not have memories. They're just algorithmic systems designed to optimize for cost and efficiency.
That always makes me think of the architecture of a house. Being the reliable one at a company is like, it's like being the load-bearing wall.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
Right. Everyone relies on you to hold up the roof. The house literally cannot function without you in that current configuration. But if the owners decide they want an open concept floor plan, they don't care how strong you are.
They'll just tear you down.
Exactly. They tear you down, bring in a steel beam, and remodel. And you are left out on the curb, still holding the psychological weight of this collapsed identity, while the house just keeps right on standing.
That analogy gets to the very heart of the trauma. You internalize the structure's weight as your own identity.
Yeah.
Indispensability is a dangerous illusion because it exists entirely inside a system that only tracks cost. And cost is the only metric the system actually retains.
Wow.
When a corporate system resets, whether through a merger or a reduction in force, institutional memory is wiped completely clean. That zero defect project from last quarter simply ceases to exist in the system's calculus.
So I want you, the listener, to think about your own Tuesday morning. If the system you rely on reset its memory today, where have you equated your performance with your protection?
That's a hard question to ask.
It is. Where have you trained a system or a team to depend on you so completely that you've lost all the space for yourself?
And once that illusion of security shatters, we have to look at the human reaction. The immediate visceral instinct is to panic, update the resume, and rush to rebuild the exact same cage you were just freed from.
Because the nervous system craves the familiar.
Exactly, even if the familiar is exhausting.
But Julie takes a different route, though. She sits in the discomfort of her suddenly very quiet house. She has 7 months of severance pay. She takes out a yellow legal pad to do the math on her survival.
And this is where she makes a really unexpected choice.
Yeah, and here is where I am genuinely stuck. She decides to keep paying out of pocket for her MBA in e-business.
Right.
Wait, she just got laid off. Why on earth is she taking her finite, precious severance money and spending it on an expensive degree in the exact field that just discarded her? That feels incredibly reckless.
It looks completely irrational if you view an MBA strictly as a credential to print on a resume for the next HR department.
Okay, so how should we view it?
Well, Julie realizes the degree isn't about securing another corporate IT job. She is paying for a cognitive shift.
Interesting.
In the technology sector, the specific curriculum you study is practically obsolete before they even hand you the diploma. What you are actually learning in an e-business program is how to absorb rapid, destabilizing change.
Oh, I see.
You are learning the architecture of disruption. She is actively training her resilience and her capacity to adapt when the ground shifts beneath her.
So she isn't buying a piece of paper. She is buying the cognitive flexibility to survive the next decade.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. But she is also wrestling with a very heavy societal voice. The voice telling her that at 58 years old, it is simply too late for a radical reinvention.
The cultural conditioning is so strong there.
It is. It says your window for risk has closed and you should just coast into retirement.
The too late myth is incredibly pervasive, and it is a fascinating piece of cultural psychology. We live in an economy that heavily fetishizes 25-year-old disruptors.
We really do.
Largely because they are cheap to employ and malleable. This creates a subconscious assumption that human possibility naturally declines after 40. But we need to look at the arithmetic of experience.
Okay, lay the math on me.
At 55 years old, a human being has lived roughly 20,000 days. Think about what 20,000 days of lived experience actually represents neurologically.
It represents an enormous data set. You've navigated economic downturns, you've survived bad managers, you've learned how decisions are actually made in a room versus how they are presented on paper.
Precisely. It is a massive reservoir of pattern recognition. That data set compresses the learning curve for whatever challenge comes next. Experience is not a liability, it is leverage.
I love that. Experience is leverage.
Reinvention at 25 is about blind exploration. You are throwing things at the wall. Reinvention at 58 is about integration. You are not starting from zero. You are starting from profound depth.
That reframes the entire concept of aging in the workplace. It brings to mind a memory she shares in the book from 2 years before she lost her job.
The Sedona trip.
Yes. She was at a retreat in Sedona, sitting by an incredibly still pool surrounded by those massive red rocks. And the instructor prompted the group to write down what they would do if money were no object.
And what did she write?
Julie wrote down a single word: chocolate. And underneath it, a phrase. Chocolate for the spirit. She already knew the answer.
She did.
She possessed the vision, but she kept postponing it under the guise of the word later.
Later is perhaps the most dangerous word in career development. It feels like patience, and patience is a virtue, so we feel good about it.
Right. It feels responsible.
But later is almost always postponement masked as responsibility. The disruption of losing her IT job did not magically give her the answer. The answer was already in the notebook in Sedona.
Wow.
The disruption simply removed the luxury of using the word later.
So, to our listener, what deeply held desire are you keeping safely locked away under that heavy label of later? What would happen if you treated the second half of your career as a deliberate expansion rather than a slow withdrawal?
That is the big question. But, having the vision of artisan chocolate is one thing. Moving from theory to actually taking sovereignty over your career is a massive, highly vulnerable leap.
Oh, definitely.
Execution requires stepping out of the theoretical safety of the legal pad.
And she doesn't just dip her toe in either. She builds a rigorous strategic plan. Her husband physically builds a certified commercial kitchen from scratch in the space above their garage.
Which is an incredible commitment.
It is, and she refuses to compromise on the standard of her product. She sources this incredibly premium, single-origin Swiss couverture chocolate called Felschlin.
Felschlin, right.
Yeah, and to put that in perspective, this isn't like melting down cheap candy bars.
Yeah.
This is highly complex, volatile material that requires absolute precision to temper.
It's an art form.
It really is. She holds her standards so fiercely that for one of her first major tests, she drives 45 miles through a massive flooding storm.
Oh my goodness.
Right, and her cargo. A single Tiffany blue box containing exactly one rose-shaped bonbon, which she is delivering for a wedding.
That drive through the storm is the physical manifestation of her new standard. Think about it. In her corporate IT life, she was a cog inside a system that relentlessly optimized for cheapness and efficiency.
Right.
Now, she is the architect of the system, and she is optimizing for excellence. But holding a high standard in a completely new space requires immense vulnerability.
Because you have to subject that standard to public judgment.
Exactly.
And she faces that judgment head-on at a baby fair at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. She describes standing behind a simple folding table. She has these exquisite 4-piece boxes of chocolate wrapped in pink and blue ribbons, dusted with edible gold glitter.
Beautiful presentation.
Stunning. But she is standing in a chaotic room filled with strollers, crying babies, and exhausted parents. She suddenly realizes she has no Fortune 50 title.
The armor is gone.
Yes, she has no corporate halo protecting her ego. She is just a woman standing behind a table, realizing her audience doesn't even know they want what she is offering yet.
This is the crux of visibility and the reality of career transition. In her old life, her institutional authority preceded her into the room. People respected her because of the logo on her badge.
Right.
At the baby fair, she experiences status withdrawal. She has to build the entire framework of value in the 30 seconds before someone tastes her chocolate. She has to educate the palate of her customer in real time.
It's like trying to set up a lemonade stand, but instead of lemonade, you're selling a rare, complex, fine wine.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
You can't just expect people to get it instantly. You have to patiently train your audience before they can appreciate your value. You have to endure the blank stares while they figure it out.
And that mechanism of educating the market highlights the critical difference between being indispensable and being sovereign.
Okay, break that down for me.
When you are indispensable to a corporation, that status is assigned to you by a manager. Because it is assigned, it can be revoked by a stranger from HR on a random Tuesday.
Oh, wow.
Sovereignty, on the other hand, is chosen. It is built. It cannot be taken from you. But building sovereignty means you have to be willing to set up your table before your pitch is perfect. You have to be willing to be seen in the messy middle, standing at a baby fair with no title.
And enduring that messy middle pays off. Her momentum compounds. She perfects her craft to the point where she takes her Mayan spice bar to the New York Chocolate Show, which is one of the most competitive stages in the world.
And she crushes it.
She does. Out of thousands of creations, her bar hits the top 5. She built a tangible, award-winning reality out of nothing but a vision on a blank legal pad.
It's just incredible.
So think about your own trajectory right now. What table can you set up today, even before your pitch is perfect? What is one step you can take without waiting for full clarity?
And conversely, what standard are you tempted to lower right now, just to be more easily understood or quickly accepted by your current market?
Right. Now, if the story ended there at the New York Chocolate Show, it would be a neat, cinematic triumph.
But life rarely works like that.
It really doesn't. Reinvention isn't a single event. It's a continuous cycle. Just as she establishes this beautiful sovereignty, the universe introduces another massive, completely unplannable disruption.
The COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, the pandemic hits and completely wipes out a meticulously planned 2-year travel schedule of major chocolate shows.
Which is huge.
Those shows were the economic lifeblood of her business. And if the global crisis wasn't enough, an intensely personal one strikes. Her husband's health begins to fail.
It's just heartbreaking.
His illness worsens to the point where they are forced to sell their beautiful 5-acre property. And that means selling the beloved, hand-built commercial kitchen right along with it.
It is a devastating, almost cruel sequence of losses. After doing everything right, after surviving the initial corporate collapse and building something pure, she has to pack up her entire life all over again.
And before she walks away from the kitchen for the last time, she fulfills one final Christmas order. It's for a product she called Toffee Love.
Oh, I love the name.
Yeah, and she actually resisted making toffee for a long time because her ego told her she was a fine artisan chocolatier, not a commercial candy maker.
Right, holding on to that identity.
Exactly. But she eventually made it, she perfected it, and her customers adored it. She packs the final orders of Toffee Love in these elegant gold-striped bags tied with red ribbons, ships them out without writing any grand, dramatic farewell letter to her clients, and quietly closes the door on that chapter of her life.
What a way to go out.
And then she pivots yet again. She realizes that the profound essay she desperately needed to read back when she was fired simply didn't exist. So she sits down and writes this book.
Which brings us full circle.
It does. But my question is, how does a human being survive this? You lose your inherited identity, you build the beautiful new dream with your own 2 hands, you lose that dream to a global pandemic and a family illness, and somehow you don't just succumb to absolute cynicism.
Well, to understand how she avoids cynicism, we have to look at the biological concept of the second bloom.
The second bloom, okay.
Yes. In horticulture, a plant's ability to bloom is not a one-time linear event. Plants cycle through periods of explosive growth and periods of deep dormancy.
Right.
But they do not bloom just because the external weather is perfect. They bloom because during their dormancy, they have accumulated enough internal biological readiness. Julie's second bloom, becoming an author, is not her starting over from zero. It is an integration.
So when she lost the commercial kitchen, she didn't lose her foundation because the kitchen was never the foundation.
Exactly the point. In the first half of a professional's career, the flow of contribution is largely transactional and inward-facing. You are constantly asking, how do I build my career? How do I earn status? How do I secure my position?
All about acquiring.
Yes, but in the second half of a well-lived career, the flow of contribution reverses. It becomes outward-facing. The driving question shifts to, what do I know that someone else desperately needs?
Oh, that's powerful.
Julie realized she possessed specific, hard-won, empirical evidence that a human life can be rebuilt after a total structural collapse. She wrote the book because her contribution was no longer about proving her own value to a system. It was about handing a map to the woman sitting in a quiet house wondering if her professional life is over.
The shift from, how do I prove my value, to what do I know that someone else needs, changes the entire chemistry of a career.
It really does.
It takes all of that accumulated pattern recognition, all of those 20,000 days of surviving hard things, and points it outward as a service. So listener, what hard-won evidence do you possess that someone else is desperate for right now?
And what contribution would feel most deeply meaningful to you in this exact phase of your life? Not the most impressive contribution for a LinkedIn update, but the most fundamentally true.
If there is a core unifying takeaway from Julie's journey to carry with you this week, it is the realization that external scaffolding is never your foundation. Whether that scaffolding is a 30-year tenure at a Fortune 50 institution or a beautifully hand-built commercial kitchen above a garage, those things are just temporary structures. You are the foundation.
Yes.
The cognitive flexibility, the discipline, the pattern recognition, and the sheer nerve you have built, those elements go with you everywhere. They cannot be eliminated in a reduction in force, and they cannot be sold with a piece of real estate.
The external disruptions do not destroy your value. They simply strip away the noise and reveal what was always inherently yours.
As we close today, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. Returning to that idea of institutional memory.
Okay.
We are constantly pressured to leave a legacy at the companies we work for. We pour our weekends and our stress into building a legacy for a system that, as we establish, tracks only cost and will wipe its memory clean the moment it resets.
A sobering reality.
Very. If institutional memory is a myth, then true legacy cannot be left in a corporate database. True legacy is the psychological blueprint you leave for the actual people coming up behind you.
I completely agree.
Think about your current role right now. Have you become the transfer point for everyone else's stress? If you dropped all that absorbed tension today, who would actually be standing underneath it, and what would that person build? Look at the people in your immediate orbit right now. If your current employer disappeared tomorrow, what specific blueprint of resilience, standard, or courage are you leaving for them to build upon? Keep asking the hard questions about your path. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.